So I wanted to talk about respecting the sovereignty of the individual. It's kind of wordy, but the reality is that it's kind of the flip side of boundaries. And just to define boundaries, they're what define us. They are essentially the walls and moat around the castle. Boundaries allow us to determine what is or is not acceptable to us and what we will and will not tolerate. Boundaries create the definition of who we are from ourselves to other people, from ourselves to the outside world. Boundaries basically create us, they allow us to be an individual. So, boundaries are also what we will tolerate and what we permit in different levels. I mean, I may permit somebody to give me a hug. A friend comes and sees me and gives me a hug because they're really excited to see me. I permit that. That's within my boundaries with that person. However, I won't tolerate somebody I don't know coming up and touching me inappropriately. So there's different kind of layers of boundaries and degrees of them. So there are some boundaries that are rock solid. Like, you're not going to do that, period. I don't care who it is that infringes on my person. But for the most part in our lives, boundaries are very fluid, and boundaries take a long time to be established. Okay, so I'm going on a lot about boundaries. The topic is actually respecting the sovereignty of the individual. So, how does that play with boundaries? Well, it's the reverse side of boundaries. So, boundaries are what I set personally for myself. Respecting the sovereignty of the individual is how I respect somebody else's boundaries. This is now me dealing with somebody else's boundaries and space. And this is a really interesting spot. A lot of times we don't really think about somebody else's boundaries. We don't even recognize them until we cross them and that person gets really pissed or gets really aggravated and triggered. We don't realize that we crossed a boundary. Basically, because other people have different boundaries than we do. What's acceptable to me might not be acceptable to you. We have boundaries that are based on our experiences, how we're raised, traumatic experiences, culture. I mean, all of these different things create our perception of our boundaries. Well, when you're on the other side and you're dealing with another person, you may not know their boundaries. You may not understand their boundaries. You may be completely oblivious to them. Many people, and this is from my personal experience, almost universal, because in different cultures I've experienced the same thing, where people don't really know their own boundaries. Their boundaries become confused. Sometimes they can't articulate them. There's a difference in boundaries between what men think is acceptable and women think is acceptable. There's definitely confusion between men and women in all cultures about what boundaries are acceptable between them. And this goes for work, friendships, families. So, what do? You don't actively want to go and cross somebody's boundaries, especially somebody you're close to, especially a family member or a very close friend or a partner. You don't want to go and cross their boundaries. You're not trying to compromise who they are. So we have to respect their individual sovereignty. We have to, as the other partner, the other person in the dynamic, become aware that, of course, this other person has boundaries, but we may not know them or understand them. So, how can we, as the other person in the dynamic, be respectful and conscious of the other person's sovereignty, of their autonomy? This is going to vary with each individual person. It's going to be different for everyone in every interaction that you have. Your way of respecting boundaries and individual sovereignty is going to be different with your boss at work than it is with your romantic partner. You're going to have different ways of projecting and different ways of being protective and mindful of the other person. I think one of the biggest places that we can start with in terms of respecting individuality and the individual sovereignty is to be mindful of our language. So when you start using words like, well, you should, you need to, you must, I think should is really the biggest offender. If you can listen to yourself and hopefully think about what you're going to say before you say it, unless you're me and you just say things because you just verbally barf everything. If you can try and be mindful and remember, if it sounds bossy, if it sounds like you're trying to tell somebody what to do, yeah, you're probably stepping on their sovereignty. You're probably infringing yourself, injecting yourself into their methodology, their flow. Don't do that. Just don't do that. Don't be bossy. Nobody wants to be bossed around. Nobody wants to be told whether it's, I mean, think about it. Everybody on earth, every single person has either that friend or more commonly, that really annoying family member. Okay? Think of that family member who always has to tell you what to do. They think of you as being like, oh, 12 years old and, you don't know any better. And they've got to tell you exactly what to do and how to do it. And that's a conflict because you really want to be pissed off at that person because stop treating me like a kid and stop telling me what to do. But at the same time, they're doing it with love. And you're trying really hard to understand why they're doing it and just let it go. But nobody likes the feeling of being bossed around. Think of that feeling. Think of that really annoying feeling. Well, when you don't respect the sovereignty of another individual, you're doing that to them. You're pushing yourself on them. Now, if they have strong boundaries, they're going to say, hey, knock it off. That's not okay. However, most people don't have strong boundaries. Most people's boundaries are super, super squishy. And that's when, people get hurt feelings or get resentful or get angry or get triggered because they have squishy boundaries and they didn't stop an infringement. So my solution or my philosophy on this is I recognize the people who I am closest with have some difficult boundaries. They have some spaces where I work very, very hard not to infringe and tread on. But I'm human. We all are, except the cat. She's not human, but she's a furball. But as humans, we accidentally do these things. We don't necessarily mean to. And if you mean to, if you deliberately go out and push people's boundaries, especially the people you love, you're an asshole. Don't do that. You're going to end up alone and everybody's going to hate you. So please just stop. Stop. If you feel the need to infringe on other people's boundaries for fun, get some help. There's a problem. Okay, PSA over. But we need to be mindful of the other person's boundaries. I don't want to infringe upon the people closest to me. I don't want to hurt them. I don't want to trigger them. But I'm human, and it happens. And it happens with me being completely unaware of that I did that. And usually I don't even know it until the other person bites back and says, "Oh, hey, by the way." So I suggest, and I am challenging you to become mindful, to think about the other individual, to put yourself in their space. If you were saying these words to them, try and analyze it neutrally. And would you be pushing your own boundaries? Do you think you're pushing their boundaries? Are you infringing upon their sovereignty, upon their individuality? Are you taking away something from them, the ability to learn the lesson, to enjoy the thing, to do things their way? And even if it's a way that isn't necessarily going to work or isn't right in your eyes, they have every right to pursue and do things how they want to. You don't want to be told what to do. You don't want to be told that you shouldn't do it that way. You should do it my way. No, you want to be able to do it your way because you are an individual. You have sovereign territory. You are capable. So this is the flip side of boundaries. Respecting sovereignty and autonomy of an individual is paramount. You need to respect people for being the beautiful, dysfunctional, fucked up, completely irrational, sometimes just nuts version of themselves, because that's what makes them beautiful and unique and fantastic. So give them the liberty of being all of those crazy things. And in return, chances are they'll give you the liberty to be all of those crazy things for you too. And that's a beautiful gift. So consider it the extending of a beautiful gift to receive a beautiful gift. So I hope somebody liked hearing that rant. And if you enjoy conversations like this about mindset and topics, I don't know, I just randomly pick things that I want to talk about, and you enjoy horrible production value of me just sitting here at my desk talking at you, then by all means, do the things, click the buttons, hit the bells, whatever it is, and let's be internet friends. Leave me comments below. I love to hear other people's opinions and your take on things, and I love to respond to those too. If you really, really want to be internet friends and you want to talk about all this crazy shit, I have a link to a community that I have. It's a free community. There's no fees, no charges, no nothing. And it's going to be down below. And I would love it if you would come and hang out and be my internet friend. So I hope you have a wonderful day, and I will see you in the next video. Thank you.